Hi everybody, this is the third of my live broadcasts this week, and not surprisingly we're focusing on that topic of how to survive and thrive and how to lead in times of chaos and uncertainty. So on the first day, which was Monday, we shared some general tips on how to survive and what to focus on in these times. Yesterday I looked particularly at working virtually and shared some tips on that. And today I'm answering your questions, and particularly 3 questions that you have asked in the Facebook group. So if you're in my Facebook group and that's where you're listening to the broadcast, these are some of the questions that have been asked this week. If you're not in my Facebook group and you're seeing this somewhere else, then please do join us. It's the Effortless Leader Revolution, and there's loads and loads of resources which I only share in my Facebook group. So do join us if you want to take advantage of those. If you're listening live, just give us a like. It's always nice to know who's there, and if you have any questions that come up as I'm speaking, just post them, and if I have time I will get round to those too today. But firstly, I heard something this morning and I just thought it was great, and it's a great thing any time of day really, but it was Dan Pink's podcast. I think that's what he calls it, or his Pinkcast, and he said this. He said, if a hotshot came and took over my job, what would he or she stop doing immediately, or what would he or she do differently? And I thought that's a great question to focus on, given that at the moment there's a lot going on. We're maybe moving over to virtual working, or we're not in our normal places of work, or we're working really crazy hours if we work in retail and the NHS and other healthcare type organisations. So life as we know it is very different in so many different ways. So I thought that question just focus the mind really. So if a hotshot came and sat in my chair, what would he or she do differently? And it really got me thinking about some things for me. So I hope that's a useful thought for you too. So the questions I am going to answer today come from Donna and Michelle and from Catherine. And Catherine, your question got a lot of likes and agreements with the question and the challenge that you're facing. So I'm going to shout out those names later. So I'm going to answer Donna's question first. And Donna said, how do I motivate my new team? Well, it's a great question, and actually it's probably a question that has 2 answers in a way. One is normally when things are normal, whatever that means, how do I motivate my team? And the second is, how do I motivate them now when the world is changing around us and everything is looking different? So when anybody says to me, how do I motivate my team? I have 2 very simple words, and it's this: ask them. Simple, eh? So what I suggest you do, Donna, is sit down with each of your team members. This is about connecting, getting to know them as human beings, what they love about their job, how long they've been doing it, what lights them up, what drives them mad, and the motivation conversation can come out of that. And I have to say a couple of things here. As their leader, you can do certain things to motivate people, like creating the right environment, creating that environment for psychological safety, where people are able to be open and honest. But they are also responsible for their own motivation too. So, you know, it's a bit of a 2-way street. We're all responsible for our own lives. The other thing to say is that if they want to be motivated by things that absolutely cannot change, then there's no point whatsoever in focusing on that. So I said in yesterday's broadcast, focus on what you can influence and change. So you need to do that together, Donna, with your team. So I hope that helps. And in the Facebook group, I've got some resources for you. I just want to check where they are. They are in Unit 4. So on the Facebook group, if you go into the units and look at Unit 4, you'll find all sorts of resources on working with teams. And I've done a very short video on what to focus on in your first 30 days with the team as well. So that's my top tip. Those are where you'll find resources. I hope that helps you. So that was Donna's question. Michelle asks a very pertinent question for these times. And Michelle, you say, how often should I connect with my now virtual team? That's a really great question. And I did some thinking on that yesterday. And this is what I want to say. Just if those of you that didn't hear the broadcast yesterday, then here are what my thoughts are. Firstly, nobody knows yet how the best way to connect with your virtual team or how often is, because we're all in that kind of let's just suck it and see what comes out. But this is what I recommend you do. Connect virtually with them on some platform that has a webcam if you can. Now, I know Denise in this group said that there's a bit of shortage of webcams at the moment, not surprisingly, but if you can get one together and see each other, it does help. What I would suggest is whenever you've started virtual working at the beginning of your working week, you always do a check-in, and it can be really concise. It needs to be concise. 3 minutes or so, just check in. How's everybody doing? How are you feeling about the virtual working? What are you working on this week? And what help do you need from me or the rest of the team? Keep it really succinct, really focused. Now, you might decide to do that check-in every morning. You might decide to do a check-out every evening. Play around with it and see what works. But a couple of things I would also recommend. One is that there's the work check-in where we're looking at tasks, if you will. But remember, if a lot of people are working virtually for the first time, they're going to miss those water cooler conversations. They're going to miss that cuppa, how are you doing? What's going on? So it's fine to maybe include some virtual non-work type check-ins as well. And I would also recommend at the end of the week, you just do a kind of check out, if that's right. What worked well with our virtual way of working? What do we need to fix going forward? And any other thoughts that people want to share. So you can then course correct as you go along. Now, I said more about virtual working and some of the other things you need to be mindful of yesterday, Michelle. So if you haven't seen that video, then please do have a look. Catherine, just shout out to you because you've just said, I just achieved a win. I asked, took on the feedback, acted on it, and the effect was massive. The respective team member said he was so happy and he was bouncing up and down on his seat. Now, I guess that's a response to the question about motivation, I think. But if it was about something else, then just let me know. So Catherine, coming on to your question now, and shout out to other people in the group who had a similar question. So that's Julie, Kerry, Dawn, Lisa, Jan, Sarah, Carolyn. And this is such a common question. It's one of those that I always say, if I had £1 or €1 or $1 or whatever for everybody who asked me this question, I would be so rich now. So it's kind of a statement, really. Catherine says, I've got a bit of a fear of delegating to my team when they're already so busy. Oh yes, and shout out if that's your challenge too. Well, I think there's a few things going on here. One, it's a mindset issue in some ways, and it's also a belief issue. So many of us have that belief that we want to be liked, or we must be perfect, or we have to take care of other people above and beyond or before we take care of ourselves. So I just want you to challenge your mindset a little bit on whether that belief is helping you do what needs to be done or isn't. So that's my first thought. The second one is, are you all doing the things that are the most important? Because if your team are busy doing things, are they the most important things? Are they doing them in the most effective way? So that's another one of my questions for you to think about. And the third one is for you to take a look, if you haven't already, on the resources that I've put in the Facebook group in Unit 2. And Catherine and all those others that I name checked, I want you to have a look at my cheat sheet called can't remember the name of it now, but it's called 10 ways to, I can't remember, but it's about beating overwhelm anyway. It's a cheat sheet, beating overwhelm in 20 minutes a day. So I want you to print that off or have it on your screen somewhere and work through the things I'm asking you to do every day. And the first one is to block out 20 minutes a day to work on that. And tip number 6, I think, is around delegating. And it's a really short, sharp way of doing that delegation conversation. So check that resource out, because if you do work through it and put into practice the things I've talked about, it really will help you. But it often does come back to that mindset shift and that habit shift. So what are the habits we need to change? What are the mindsets or beliefs we need to change that are getting in our way? And then look at the practical action that we can take little by little, 20 minutes at a time. So thank you for listening to those answers to your questions. I hope they were helpful. If you've got any more questions, then fire away, put them in the chat box, put them in the comments box rather, and I will answer as many as I can. So in the meantime, stay well, stay safe. Thank you so much for listening, and look forward to speaking to you soon. Bye.